You know, if you're a parent, there's a pretty good chance you've worried about screen time. You've probably asked yourself, how many hours is too many? It's kind of the question that haunts modern parenting, right? But what if we've been asking the wrong question this whole time? So today, we're going to dive into some research that totally flips the script, shifting the focus from how much to how, what, and when our kids are using their devices. Okay, let's get right into it. All right, first things first, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale of what we're talking about. I mean, this isn't just a little bit of screen time here and there. For a ton of kids, it's basically a constant digital companion. And the numbers, whoa, they are staggering. Okay, get this. For teenagers, so we're talking kids aged 13 to 18, the daily average for screen media use is a whopping 9 hours. That's more time than they spend sleeping or even in school. Just let that sink in. And it starts so much younger. For the tweens, kids between 8 and 12 years old, the average is already 6 hours a day. 6 hours! But here's the stat that really makes your jaw drop. It's how early this all begins. By the time a child is just 4 years old, 3/4 of them already have their own mobile device. So yeah, this is not just a teen issue, it's a toddler and preschool issue too. So we've got these huge, kind of scary numbers, but honestly, they don't tell the whole story. To really get what the impact is, we need to look past the clock and, become a fly on the wall inside a modern family's home. And that is the exact question researchers set out to answer. They wanted to know, what are these hours of media use actually made of? What are the conversations like? What are the real family dynamics at play? For a really long time, the go-to solution was this idea called parental mediation. The thinking that parents can step in, set some limits, watch stuff with their kids, and talk about the content to protect them. But the question is, does that classic model even work anymore in an age where every kid has their own personal portable screen? This is where it gets really, really cool. Instead of just asking parents what they do, because, let's be real, we don't always remember perfectly, researchers use this device called Lena. It's this tiny little recorder the child wears that captures the real, unfiltered audio of their day. Every single interaction about media, recorded. And what they heard was, well, it was fascinating and in some ways, a little bit concerning. The real-world data pointed to 4 key themes about how families are actually living with their screens day in and day out. So let's break this down. First off, when parents did step in, it was usually just to say no or to give technical help like push the next button. It wasn't really to talk about the story. Second, those really great conversations about what's happening on screen, they almost always happened because the child asked a question, not because the parent brought it up. Third, there was this constant back and forth negotiation over time limits. And finally, this new pattern showed up, parallel media use. Picture it. Everyone's in the same room, but each person is totally absorbed in their own little digital world. Kinda together but alone. And this just perfectly illustrates that negotiation thing. This is a direct transcript from the study. The parent tries to limit the TV, the kid pushes back, and what's the compromise? Switching to a different screen. It just shows how messy and sometimes contradictory these little moments can be. Now, this parallel use thing often leads to what researchers call media multitasking, even for really young kids. They're playing a game on a tablet while the TV show is just on in the background. And look, research with young adults shows this is linked to worse working memory and a harder time paying attention. The fact that we're now seeing this with toddlers, well, that's a huge red flag for researchers. So, here's the crucial point, the big takeaway here. We have to think beyond just the hours. The impact of screens isn't just about time displacement. It's about what our kids are seeing and how they're seeing it. First, there's the content. What a kid watches, whether it's educational or violent, has a direct impact. And second, there's the context. When and where that media is being used is just as important. I mean, using a tablet at bedtime is totally different from using it for a school project, right? So this all leads us to a new, and I think, a much more important question. If everybody's using screens this much, when does it actually cross the line from just being typical behavior into a genuine problem that's affecting a child's life? To answer that, researchers created a brand new tool. It's called the Problematic Media Use Measure, or PMUM for short. And the genius of this thing is that it completely ignores the clock. Instead, it measures the behaviors and the consequences that surround screen use. Just look at the kinds of questions it asks. It's not how many hours. It's things like, does it cause problems? Does it get in the way of family life? Is it the only thing that calms your child down? Does your kid become irrationally upset when it gets taken away? See? This gets right to the heart of whether the use is functional or if it's actually dysfunctional. And here it is, the key finding. When you put the two approaches side by side, the number of hours a kid spends on screens is actually a pretty weak predictor of whether they're having other problems in their life. But their score on the PUMU, that's a strong predictor. This tells us loud and clear that the behaviors around media are so much more important than the minutes on the clock. Okay, so we've pretty much established that counting hours is out and focusing on behavior is in. So what does that mean for us, in the real world? Let's talk about how to actually put this knowledge into practice. Yeah, this is the million-dollar question for parents, for educators, for everyone. If a simple 2-hour rule just doesn't work anymore, what are we supposed to do instead? Well, the answer isn't a single number, but a much more thoughtful, personalized strategy. The American Academy of Pediatrics has actually moved away from recommending those strict time limits. Instead, what they now recommend is that every single family should sit down together and create a personalized family media use plan. The goal here isn't to eliminate screens, but to integrate them into your life in a healthy, balanced way. And look, this isn't as intimidating as it sounds. Your plan can have really simple, powerful rules. Stuff like no phones at the dinner table, period. No devices in bedrooms after a certain time. Making it a point to prioritize quality shows you can watch together. And maybe the most important one, parents modeling the exact behavior they want to see. It's all about making conscious choices, not just letting media happen to you. So let's end by reframing that question we started with. Maybe the goal isn't just to count the minutes of screen time, but to make the minutes of screen time actually count. By shifting our focus from quantity to quality, from hours to habits, we can start a much healthier, more productive conversation about raising amazing kids in this digital world.